You know, this entire podcast, what are we even calling this thing? Is it a podcast? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean,
There's
that's
too
like,
many podcasts. You know
yeah,
what I mean? This is just us sitting around the table, Zoom meeting, trying to make sure that everybody's got the right mindset. And that's why today's topic about mindset in today's environment is so critical. And I can't help but like have flashbacks about 2009 when I first started my agency. You know, this might be redundant for some, but I'll never forget, I was at the 2009 Texas area conference. So you had all the agents in Texas at this conference, and I am in there. I strolled in a little late, and so I had to sit in the back. And they started the conference, and I turned to my right because the back door's open, and I'm right next to them. And you have 8 pallbearers carrying a black coffin that said 2009 on it as they come past me down the aisle. And I'm like, what the hell did I just get myself into? Like, I was going to go be a cop. You know what I mean? Like, holy crap. Everybody was just silent. And this was my first month as an insurance agent, right? And so I talk about mindset. Where I was at that moment was, what did I get myself into? And it really took hitting rock bottom a few months later, knowing that, I didn't know I had the worst support system. I didn't have Facebook like we have it today. I mean, the kind of content people have access to for free now is mind-boggling. That I wish I would have had that kind of content, 13 years ago. And there was a lot of struggles that I had to figure out on my own, and how to grow through a recession. But and we'll get into some of those topics. This is just kind of a broad kind of my viewpoint was what I found out hitting rock bottom, starting basically from scratch and myself, was that as long as I focused and really dialed in on the right activities, holy crap, there was so many people shopping for insurance. I just didn't know how to fish. You know what I mean? But in that down rate cycle environment, people are, I should have said rate increases. Everybody's taking rate increases. The economy's collapsing. Everybody's freaking out.
right.
Once I dialed in, I was one of the fastest growing agents in my district and in Texas. And it was all a big mindset shift that I had to have going, does it suck if I don't know what I'm doing? Yeah, like it was rock bottom. But then once I realized, oh my God, the opportunity in insurance, the renewals accumulation, the rate increases are a pay raise. Like, more people are going to shop for insurance during rate increase environments, more quality prospects, higher pay raise. Holy crap. So it was that mentality of, I got to get out of my rock bottom and really start to dial in on all these different topics, which we'll get into. But that was the key moment for me, is when I started figuring out how to quote more during that rate environment, and how people were shopping more and more interested to talk to me as long as I knew how to fish. I just started making way more successful movements in my agency. I don't know, what was your experience like in 2008?
Well, that time period in 2008, there was a lot going on for me. You have everything going on with the economy and just the country. My youngest son was also diagnosed with cystic fibrosis
Yeah, I
in April
remember you.
2008, and for me personally, that changed a lot of things in the way I ran my business, and frankly, just the way I looked at life. And look, guys, in this call, I don't think either one of us are trying to diminish or minimize, challenges and problems, right?
100%.
But I think what we're trying to get you to understand, I did this a long time, almost 30 years. And when you first get going and you have to deal with this stuff, it is kind of scary, especially if you came in a time where maybe you hadn't experienced it yet, right? So like I started in 96. In 96, Hurricane Andrew had just been through Florida, and it
Yeah.
had basically shut everybody down. I can remember I'm a brand new scratch agent, and the state manager comes by my office and lets me know that the state plan for every agency is 1.8 cars a month and zero point 0.9 homes a month, and that's how I'm supposed to make a living, right? And, that
Yeah.
kind of business. And it was like, what do I do now? And I had to focus on commercial and life insurance and, non-standard business and those kind of things. And then of course you had 9/11, 2008, rate increase after rate increase. I live in Alabama, and, tornadoes here and hail damage and all that. It's just a way of life. I think what's probably very unique about this particular cycle that we're in now is it applies pretty much to everybody. It's an inflationary reason. That's why we're seeing what we're seeing across the board, and everybody's dealing with that. So I've been through rate increases where, our carrier just missed the number, right? The actuaries got it wrong. The combined ratio wasn't what they wanted, and then they push a rate increase through. Like when I bought 2 agencies in Atlanta, Georgia, and I think it was May of 2012, something like that. The day after I close on them, the commissioner comes out and says, "Hey guys, if you have Allstate Insurance, who I was representing at the time, you need to find insurance someplace else because their rate increase was 42% and it's just way too high." And it was a political stunt that he was doing, but it only applied to us at that time. Nobody else was taking anything, So I think today, with what everybody's dealing with, you're getting them. Everybody else is going to get them. And this ain't going to be the last one you're getting. There's going to be more of it. And that's what we're going to talk through today is like how you deal with that. What is the good that comes from it? And what should you be focused on to move your business forward as you go through these things and not be, you got to be aware of it, but you shouldn't be afraid of it, So we've been through this many, many times. And again, I can remember the first few times it was like, oh crap, we just got this giant rate increase. What are we going to do? What are our customers are going to leave? How are we going to write business? All that kind of stuff. So hopefully today, some of the topics we go through will help you to work through this yourself, and you'll come out on the end of it, much, much better off.
Absolutely. Did you have one of the things in 2009 when I first started, I really found that having a mentor and someone to keep me positive, because I was at my wit's end. My district management office, the guy literally didn't show up. Like he wasn't there. Like, where is he? I need help. And he had no employees in his office to help me. So for like the first 3 months, I'm just like bootstrapping to find out what to do. And I would always try to go and find the top agents and really just latch onto their coattails and ask them questions. And, did you find any good mentors when you started, and what did that look like?
I did. And I agree with you 1,000%. The people you hang around are going to influence your thoughts, and they'll influence your decisions, and that will help you create the person you're going to be. And then it also trickles down to your staff too. So, I can remember early on in my career when I was talking to somebody on the phone, frankly, bitching and moaning about something, and my staff is down the hallway and they're hearing all that, right? And that's not good. You can't do that. So I had to really learn to be a positive person. And you're right. I had people, through all these different challenges that I looked up to, that I felt were doing a great job, doing a much better job than what I was doing. And probably that, along with getting those negative people out of my ear. Because I'm telling you guys, they will certainly affect the way you think and the way you act and the decisions that you make. And they're not going to do anything to bring you down. It could be other agents. It could be your family. It could be your friends. Everybody's got friends that want you to be successful as long as you're not more successful than they are, right? And those are the ones that love to bring you down. If they don't clap when you win, you need to pay attention to that. But having a mentor and someone that you can look up to, that's been through these kind of things before and bounce ideas off of, and is really going to support you and be positive about things, I think that's critical. That's one of the reasons why we started CWC. But even if you don't get involved in a program, just having people in your community, and it could be somebody in another industry, it could be another professional, an attorney, a CPA. You'll find when you start talking to a lot of these people, what I find interesting here, when I'm dealing with other professionals and other business owners and CEOs, they love our business model. They love there's so many times they're envious of what we have. When you think about the pandemic, and going through what everybody went through, the vast majority of us were able to just kind of pick up, go work from home, didn't really miss a beat, right? Your customers still buy what you're selling because they have to. And I'm talking to a business owner that owns a restaurant, right? And he shut down for 6 months and then tries to call his employees back and nobody will come back to work, and has all these other problems and supply chain issues, inventory. So when it's interesting, when I talk to other professionals and other business owners and CEOs, they love our business. And sometimes I think we kind of lose perspective on some of the things that are a huge advantage for us, so getting around the right people to help you see a little more, maybe a little more clearly through these things. I think that's definitely a huge part of making sure that you work through times like this for sure.
Well, I'm noticing a big kind of fork in the road of segments of agents right now, especially online, because that's where you see most of the chatter, right? It's agents panicking, or it's agents going, holy crap, this is going to be the next gold rush. Like, I'm going to do a lot of acquisitions in this frame. And that's why I posted back in February. I was like, guys, get ready. It's coming. And what you have to make sure you do, and I think, and I feel really bad, so I don't want to, make this sound too harsh, but like the agents who are panicking right now, it's because you don't have systems, training, and know how to market, right? Because those agents who are going, holy crap, this is the modern day gold rush, they have systems, training, and marketing set up. So what I would really be cautious and cognizant about is the chatter you get caught up in online. Because if somebody's panicking right now, there's some areas where I feel really bad for them, like in Florida, farmers just stopped writing business, right? Like, okay, you can bitch about that. Like, I'll listen to that. Like, I get it, right? But in general, right, it's all about making sure that, through thick and thin, we have the best business model of any, and when I say business model, resilience, right? Like, I got paid through the pandemic. I wasn't freaking out about, where my next paycheck was going to come from, like you said. And as long as you have your systems in place with a resilient business model, I mean, we have so much opportunity in this business. It's amazing.
That's right. And now is the time to double down on that. So, if you're struggling with whether it's production or hiring, any of the issues that plague most agencies, now's the time to really start like thinking back, what can you do different? Like how can you impact these things? What changes can you make? For example, when you hire people, you can't just hire people and throw them in the deep end of the pool and hope that they can swim. Man, you got to have a process. You have to have something that creates a sense of urgency to get them rolling quickly, not 90 days or 6 months down the road. So many people are scared to hire because they've been burned so many times, right? They spent all this money on these people and they didn't work out. And a lot of that's because they didn't have a process. They didn't have any onboarding processes, no hiring processes, nothing for accountability. They just kind of like wait and see. And then 6 months later, they realize they spent all this money and, oh, well, I don't want to do that again. Well, don't do that again. Go back and think, what can I do different next time? How can I make sure that when I bring somebody on, that they're going to be successful, right? Same thing with your leads, the thing we talked about in the last call, understanding your data. There's so many things that you can control. And that's what I love about this business, is that you have a lot of control. Sometimes it may not feel that way, but your agency is perfectly designed to get the results you're getting. Think about that for a second. Whatever you're getting, it's perfectly designed to get those results, and you're the one that designed it. So you can go back and fix that. So you can analyze, and I've got some members that we've been working with over the last few months, and some of them do like a hard reset. One of them's on this call right now. I won't call her by name, but she's done a hard reset. So where you go like lock yourself in a room, or you go rent a hotel for a weekend and like really like dissect what you're doing. Where are your problem areas? How can you re-engineer and think through some of these things and create processes so that you don't have these problems in the future? And I know that's not always easy to do, and sometimes you need some direction and some help with that, but this is the time to do those things. If you'll do that now, if you really start working on getting better now, whether it's hiring, your sales process, leads, whatever it might be, then when you come out of the other side of this, when the pendulum kind of swings back the other way, then you just run gangbusters with it, So right now is a really good time to really, if nothing else, to take a hard look at some of those things. And what I always tell people is own it all. Everything is your responsibility. It's not the carrier. It's not your staff. It's not the economy. It's not the president. It's yours.
Your
You make those
franchise.
decisions.
Yeah.
And you need to own that. You need to own that and say, look, I'm going to take responsibility. I hired this person that didn't work out. I onboarded them. I held them accountable or I didn't hold them accountable. I picked this lead vendor. I either managed the data or I didn't. There's all these things that you do or don't do that determines your result. And the sooner you own that and stop blaming other people, other entities, or other situations, and really start peeling back the layers and figuring out, okay, what can I do to fix this? The better off you're going to be.
Well, and that, we have in the comments, Jesse. So he said, I have to disagree, Craig. Right now, the talent market is poor in our area, San Francisco Bay Area. And on our last week's call, we talked about hiring remotely, right? Like how remote work, especially from work from home, if you have a problem in your market or with a lead vendor, or what I really want to help people, agents and business owners with our program that we have, Coffee with Closers, is we're going to show people how to dial into not what the problem is, but what's causing the problems. Like, how do you dive deeper into the symptoms of an overall poor quality of market, right? Well, let's figure out how to remote hire. What systems do you need in place to properly remote hire? How do you hold those people accountable if you remote hire? Because you're either going to swim or you're going to sink, right? You only can control what you can control. And so I think that, as we help agents out, let's dive into not what the actual problem is, but what are the solutions? You know what I mean?
Correct. And look, who said that? Was it Jessica that said that, or Jesse?
Jesse?
Look, I agree with you. This is the worst labor market
100%
that I've ever seen. I mean, people don't show up for interviews. You hire them, then they don't come into work. They work half a day, take off at lunch, never see them again. That stuff happens. I get that. I hear it every single day. I know it's going on. But Todd's right. There's nothing we can do about that. What we can do is we can control who we hire, how we hire them, what standards and expectations we set, what the process looks like, and do everything we can to make sure we bring people on that are going to be successful. And that's what I've always tried to do. And I shouldn't say always. Once I started to learn the way I was doing it before was the wrong way, and really have a plan that, look, by day 3 or 4, that I'm going to have a pretty good idea whether this person's going to work out or not. And that minimizes my exposure. Now, if someone doesn't work, I'm only out maybe a few days or maybe a week or so of pay, not 6 months. And that's where you run into problems, is when you don't have that process. So we could talk about those things and go through, exactly what we do and how we do it. But I think the first thing is I think you have to acknowledge that Todd's right. You can only control what you can control. We can't control the economy. We can't control where the Dow is today, or what the unemployment rate is, or what people think, or what they say, what they do. We can't control any of that, but we can control what we do and the decisions that we make and how we respond to things. And I think that's what fundamentally we're just trying to get that across today.
Yeah. And, the big thing that I found that hopefully gets people motivated and encouraged is I haven't always been a data guy. I haven't always been organized, right? And it took me years until I finally had some light bulb moments to go, I've been making it really hard on myself, right? Because if I would have just from the very beginning properly set up my systems on onboarding, on training, on what my marketing systems look like, if I would have known how to be a business owner, right? Because I got thrown into this industry, scratch, not knowing what the hell I'm doing. I didn't know how to run a business. I didn't know how to manage people. If I would have early on made that my number one priority and said, you know what, I'm going to eat ramen noodles for the first 3 years, which I did anyways, because I didn't have these systems set up. If anything, because we have such a resilient business model where everybody has to have insurance, where if you focus and dedicate your time and energy on building out systems and diagnosing problems the right way and coming up with solutions and getting that oil leak, squeaky wheel oiled, then anytime market cycles come, you're going to be prepared not only to weather that storm, but to double down, right? So I'm excited about the labor market in the next 6 months. I think in the next 6 to 12 months, you're going to have a big opportunity to drop dead weight and to gain new talent that's out there searching. So first off, you probably shouldn't have dead weight in the first place, right, Greg?
Right.
Yeah. So I said that wrong, but I'm actually excited about what's coming for the labor pool.
Yeah, and look, I think that there's a lot of things that COVID did to kind of shake up this market, if you will. And I think one of those things that everybody on the call that you should be preparing for is the opportunity to offer someone a remote position. Because if you're not doing that, we already have so many hurdles that people have to jump through to come and work in an agency with licensing and everything. So if you don't offer that and someone else is, and it's an easier path for them, they're probably going to take the other option. So like the last 5 agents that we hired, they were all remote and they worked all over the country, and you just have to hold them accountable. You have to have standards in place. You have to have activity standards, production standards, all those things to make sure that you're getting what you want out of those people. And then you have to actually get them up to speed quickly, right? You have to make sure they're producing for you as soon as possible and to minimize that risk. And again, that's where people, I think sometimes they lose confidence in themselves because it went bad the last time and they don't want to make that, risky investment the next time and lose that money. Well, learn from that. When someone leaves you or something doesn't work out with a staff person, think about what could you have done different to either not hire them to begin with, meaning that where you vet them a little better and you figure something out before they ever start, or what can you do to make sure that they're going to be successful? What part of the onboarding or accountability process could have been changed? And look, sometimes you just miss it. Some people they show you the best version of themselves during that interview, and sometimes someone slips through the cracks. That's fine, but I think the more and more intentional you can be about these things, and I think that's a really good way to look at it, is not be reactive to what's going on. Try to be intentional and proactive and learn from last time, that, hey, that didn't work out and this is why, so I need to make this adjustment and fix this. Then you start getting a little more confident because you're starting to win. And that's all confidence is just the memory of winning. So the more you win, the more confident you are. So the next time, like right now, if we need to hire somebody, I'm pretty certain within that first week, they're either going to be a good fit or they're going to be gone. And my risk is going to be very minimal. And based on the way we hire now, I feel pretty confident that for them to even start that they're probably going to be a good hire. Well, that's just a process of like going through the hiring process over and over and over and starting to pull some things apart that make sense. And now we have a plan. So look, let's just be really real about it. Most people that get in this business, myself included, and I would say Todd's probably the same. Most of us are just good salespeople.
Yep.
And a company's like, you know what? You can sell, man. You were selling tires or cars or what you can sell. So you need to be an agency owner. Well, just because you can sell doesn't mean you're a good business owner, right? And there's a huge difference. Now, most of you're smart enough to figure this stuff out. It's a matter of responding to what's going on and putting things in place. But that's the reality. Most people get put in this position because they can sell. And now you've got to train yourself to run that business like an entrepreneur, not like an insurance agent. And there's a huge difference. Right. So we got to think differently. And a big part of that, and obviously what we've been talking about for the last 25 minutes, is we have to own the situation, understand there's things that we can control, some things we can't control. Let's focus on those that we can. And then as we need to make adjustments and move things around and work on getting better, then that's how you end up getting where you want to go. And when I look around the country, especially all the agents that I work with, those are at the very top and the ones that are in the middle, that's really the biggest difference. Along with them being mentally tough, which I think plays a big role in this whole deal we're talking about today, is being able to just take your thoughts and put them in compartments, knowing that, all right, there's something that I can't do anything about. I'm just going to put it over here and I'm not going to worry about it. I cannot spend time or energy focused on something that I can't do anything about. But there's a list of things, right? Like if you do an exercise, get your pad, write down all the challenges that you have, like all the things that are keeping you from getting to whatever that next level is you're looking for. And then go back to that list and scratch out all the things that you have absolutely no control over whatsoever. The things you're left with, That's what you should be working on. You should
100%.
circle those things, prioritize them, and that's what you should be doing every day. And the things you scratched off, you shouldn't think any more about them because it's just a waste of your time and your energy. So I think being mentally tough is a huge part of being successful in this business.
Well, and just to add on to that about taking control of what you can control and being an entrepreneur, not a sales agent, one of the things that I find that really, somebody said hiring PTSD. I find most people when they hire someone on, they haven't taken the time to set up a system or a process, and they hire somebody in to like develop it. And now you're bringing in another person who might be a good salesperson, but they're not an entrepreneur either. Like they don't know how to set up a business system or place or anything like that. So we have to make sure that, there's stages, there's levels to this of being a successful insurance agent and building a successful agency. You can be a successful agent until I find a lot of agents, they hit like 1,000 policies and then they like hit a ceiling. Well, it's because they could sell it up to 1,000 policies, but now they didn't have good customer retention or whatever the case may be. That's why there's people get stuck, is because once you have systems and processes in place and you're taking ownership and building a business, that's when the real entrepreneur successful agency starts to kick in.
100%. Most people hire the way I used to hire. If you could fog this mirror and you would take my terrible comp plan that I was offering you, the only thing I could afford at the time, then I would hire you. And I'd be all excited. And this guy's going to solve my problems. And he's got a great personality. And his mom's a realtor or something like that. And this is going to be the one. And you have zero plan. I had zero plan. It was just like, go get them, And then 3 months later, they're writing hardly anything. And you're wondering, what went wrong, And so, yes, you have to think a little bit differently, and someone asked a question about, hire licensed employees, you to get them licensed. Tommy asked that question. I think it's a good question. I think there's a lot of different people that have different opinions about that. What I would say, if you need somebody for a licensed role, meaning that I'm going to try to fill a spot where they've got to have a license, I would strongly encourage you to make sure they get it before they start, because you will end up with people that just never pass. They never get through the class, Now, what you can do, what we've done in the last several years, we created a position called a sales assistant, which I think is going to be more and more popular in the years to come as more and more companies go more sales and less service. The sales assistant is a great place to start people off that don't have a license and just see what they can do. And basically what their role is to help your agents, your sales agents, write more business by taking the admin work off their plate, taking things off their plate that don't require a license. And we would incentivize the agents where they had to write a certain amount of business to be able to qualify for an assistant, which they all wanted that for a lot of different reasons. Some just because they wanted the notoriety of having an assistant, some because they wanted to write more business. But we would bring this person in and let them do that job, let them do a lot of the work that, maybe the agents would be doing, maybe make some phone calls and that type of thing, just to kind of get their feet wet with it. And if they never got a license, it's fine. They could stay in that role and they would help the agency grow, because that was a position that's helping other people. But if they really liked what the agents were doing and got their license, then we promote them up, and that'd be a great place, kind of have a bench, so to speak, for sales agents in the future. So if you're really torn on somebody, that might be a good place to start them. Otherwise, get them licensed.
Yeah. So we have a question here by Robert. Starting scratch on farmers retail high bonus plan. I love that stuff. What advice would you both give first 90 days to maximize comp? So, I mean, that's a pretty complex question, only because you have systems set up. What kind of producers do you have set up? What kind of leads do you have set up? I think the way to really take advantage of any kind of bonus plan, it really has nothing to do with CSRs or customer service or anything like that, right? That's just pure marketing and efficiency at driving. How do you qualify certain types of marketing, whether it's, I have a lot of people say that insurance leads or internet leads suck. Well, they only suck if you don't know how to efficiently and effectively work them, right? Or all sorts of different things. So I would say it's really important when you're on these types of high-end bonus plans or like the ramp up phase, it's figure out, okay, what kind of marketing am I going to do? And then what system am I going to set up? I have a lot of agents who always send me messages like, an example would be telemarketing. I'm going to hire a Philippines team or I'm going to do it in-house. And, I start questioning how they thought through that process and what that looked like. And I find out a lot of times agents have people hand dialing the phone numbers. I'm like, well, you're on a enhanced comp plan that it's got a certain runway. Don't you think it would be better to use like a multi-line dialer? Like, how many people are they talking to? What's your contact rate? Like, a lot of agents don't dive into how do I completely maximize what I'm doing and be efficient, and really that dive deeper entrepreneurial efficiency mindset. I think that's what you got to get first, right? And then take that mindset to whatever kind of marketing you want to go down, whatever road you want to go down. Because I would say to maximize, if you have a time window that's 90 days out, you can't go to passive. So that's networking and direct mail and hope to get a certain amount of leads in, right? You'd be more active marketing where you can go out and buy really low quality leads, but they were active shoppers at some point in the last 24 hours. So that would be like internet leads, but you got to make sure you have the right team in place to set up to do that. So hopefully that helps you give some sort of, what kind of input can you give there, Craig?
Yeah. What I would also add to that, where I think a lot of people make a mistake, is there's no standards. There's like no expectations. When you bring somebody on, they have to know clearly what's expected of them from a minimum perspective, not here's the goal. And if you don't make it, we won't worry about it. And hopefully you'll figure it out. But this is what I need you to do. So we have weekly goals for week 1, 2, 3, and 4, then monthly goals, month 2 and 3. And usually if they get through the first 3 weeks, they're pretty good. And you don't necessarily have to follow what we do, but you need to come up with something. If I hire somebody on a Monday and I've got good marketing, I have support, everything in place, right? And I have 0 goals for them, meaning I don't expect anything. I just hope they're going to do well. The chance of them having a 0 at the end of the day on Friday is pretty good, right? But if I bring them in and I say, look, by Friday, you have to have 3, 5, 10, whatever sales you want them to have, whatever your requirement is, there's a much better chance that they're going to make that happen. And it starts the habit, it starts the pattern, starts the behavior. Most people are wired to get by. Whatever they do today, if it gets them through the day and there's no negative consequence, they're going to do the exact same thing tomorrow. And then they do it again and again and again. And then you're losing sleep at night. Well, I got to address this with this person. It's been 3 months. What do I do? Well, let's go back and do it on day 1. Let's do it during the interview. Let's talk about what they're going to have to do when they come aboard from an activity perspective and also from a results perspective. And then now you've got to hold them accountable to that. Now you have to be honest with yourself, make sure you've got the right marketing in place, make sure you're giving them the right support, that you're helping them get to where they need to be. But I think that's a huge part of it, is setting standards and expectations. When we started doing this, it was amazing how quickly we could evaluate people, right? So for example, if I'm going to hire Todd and bring him in, one thing he has to do before he starts on day 1, he has to bring some quote sheets with him. He has to bring, anywhere from 15 to 50. That's been our numbers over the years, depending on the market and where we were, the city, that type of thing. But I want to see, can the guy prospect? Can he at least talk to his friends and family? Can he get information, right? And I'm telling him during the interview, look, we're going to use those quotes. That's what we're going to do to try to get your week 1 goal. So don't just go down to the mall and take a survey of where people have their car insurance. Talk to people that will give you the benefit of the doubt. That will give you a little bit more time. They'll be patient with you. And then on week 1, we're going to go through those quotes, those quote sheets, and we're going to find the people that we really should be reaching out to. Now I can put him in a position to get him on the phone, start calling these people, seeing how well he does, and hopefully can generate some business from that. And that will start that process. And then once we get through his quotes, now we're going to work some cheap stuff, some win backs, maybe some really low cost leads, some things that don't cost us a lot of money. And I'm evaluating. I'm constantly looking and seeing, does this guy have what it takes or not? Once I realize, he's got it, now we turn them on to the full marketing and everything that we offer. and develop the guy, but
Yeah.
you got to have that kind of plan. If you don't, and you say, hey, show up on Monday and let's see where all this goes, there's a really, really good chance that either they're not going to hit what you want them to hit, or they're not going to reach their full potential. And that's really your responsibility as an owner, as a leader. That's your job. I mean, that's really the way you should be looking at it, is what can I do to get these people to reach their full potential? Finding out what's important to them, finding out what their goals are, creating processes and, the plan to make that happen, and to be their accountability partner to make that happen. That's a lot more effective than just being their boss, right?
100%.
So these are the kind of things that when you bring somebody on, if you'll work on those intentional acts, you'll have a much higher success rate. You'll become a lot more confident. And then when you do need to make hires, when you need to go out and find people, you won't be so gun shy about it, because you know what? I know how to do this. I know my risk is minimal. I'm going to find out either on day 2 or 3 whether they even have close to the ability or not. And if they don't, you get rid of them. I mean, look, if I bring somebody in, and I bring Todd in, he's got his 15 quote sheets, and by the end of the first day, I could tell the guy cannot talk on the phone. He's afraid to call people. He can't have a conversation. His phone skills are terrible. Well, then there's no need for me to keep him. So don't find that out in month 3, 4, 5, or 6. Find it out on like day 1 or 2, and
Right.
that will shorten the timeline, and you'll be easier to make those decisions going forward. So that's the kind of stuff we're talking about, is like, be really, really intentional with what you're doing. Learn from the past, and then apply those lessons, so next time you get a better result.
Well, and along with that, Brent asked, with remote workers, are you paying hourly, salary, commission only, etc.? So I would say that with that entrepreneurial mindset and taking control, it's not. I personally view where your butt in the seat is as no different, right? So you can do things like a Zoom, just have a Zoom up the entire time. What's different between a Zoom up somebody at home and them in a different office? It's the exact same dang
It's
thing.
the exact same thing.
So the cool thing though is with remote workers, if you're in like somewhere that's extremely expensive, like the San Francisco Bay Area, you can find a remote worker who's in a really low cost urban area where they're paying, $1,000 for rent for a house. They don't need a $75,000 salary in order to make ends meet, right? But to me, there would be nothing different that I would do with that employee that I wouldn't do if somebody was sitting in the office next to me, other than how do we overcome the communication issue? And Zoom would be a number one way for me to overcome that. We do that with our remote engineers, our tech engineers. We got a Zoom. We actually have an iPad in the room that is logged into Zoom in the back of the room, and it shows the person working on their computer. So I don't know if you want to go that in depth and watch someone. Maybe if they're not at their computer when you're on the Zoom and you need to watch somebody, maybe you make them turn their camera on whenever they're on office hours. But there shouldn't be anything different with your systems and processes if you're hiring remotely. So don't overthink it. It's a benefit if you use technology right.
Absolutely. And here's a strategy for you: is those of you that are with carriers that have call centers around the country, go recruit in those cities, because they will have people. Let's say the call center has 500 people working at it, right? There's always going to be 10, maybe 20% of those people that are looking for a job at any moment in time. They know the systems, they understand the lingo. Those are pretty easy people to pick up and put into your system quickly and get up to speed, right? And what I would say about remote, when it comes to the standards, Todd's right. We treat them just like we do, whether down the hallway, 40 feet away, or in Montana, 1,000 miles away. Doesn't really matter. They're still held to the same thing. But what I would say to you is that if you have a remote employee and they're getting results, right? They're writing the amount of business that you feel meets your minimum standard. Who cares if they're outside playing with their kids when they get home from school, or they're playing with their dog, or whatever it is? If they're getting you the results, they're getting you the results.
Amen.
I think you need to look at it that way. It's like, this business is all about results. It's all about sales, right? So don't try to like overthink it to the point where, they've got to do all these things in order to be successful. If they're getting you what they need, they're getting you what you need, and you can still pay them salary. It doesn't really matter, but So the last several that we've hired, that was our mindset with them. Now, is it a little bit harder to get someone to reach their full potential when they're 1,000 miles away and they're not in that social environment of an office? I would probably agree that it probably is a little bit harder. But can you find people who will do what you need done and typically find it at a lower pay rate, especially those of you that are in an area where it's really expensive? Absolutely, you can. You have to be a little careful. Some states, the taxation in those states is sometimes a little bit of a burden. So you might want to like do a little research on that state when you get ready to hire somebody. We've got a ton of content on the platform around remote employees because it got to be such a big topic, back during COVID and everything. But I love remote. I think it's a great way. One of our biggest challenges early on was we didn't have enough space, right? Like I ended up building a building, a 7,000 square foot office. Well, hell, I wouldn't need to do that today. Now, instead of worrying about having them housed in my office, I just let them work from home, even if they're in the same city. And now I'm saving that expense because that was expensive. That was a lot of money to build that building. Today, I probably wouldn't have to do that. I could say, you know what, you can work from home. You can work in that whatever state you're in. You don't have to worry about coming to the office. So, there's a lot of benefits from remote, and it does require, like Todd's saying, it requires maybe a little bit more, attention. And we use Zoom. My sales manager would have Zoom up, and she would have those people, especially the ones that maybe were struggling a little bit, maybe they weren't quite where they needed to be. They'd be on Zoom pretty much all day, and both lines would be muted, but they could see each other and talk to each other when they needed to. But look, if you're sticking your head in the sand on remote, I'm just telling you that there's going to come a day where it's going to be really difficult for you to make that hire because people are just, they have these options everywhere they go. And some companies are calling people back. I get that, but there's still a lot of them that are allowing people to do that. All of my employees at CWC, they're all remote. Everybody works, from home, and a lot of companies are doing that. So I would really encourage you to look at, the pros and cons of it. And if it makes sense for you, pursue it.
Yeah. And so I noticed, I've been staring at chat that we had some Q&A come in. Really good question from Sonia about how do we keep our team in a more positive mindset? And I know, you're king of really taking advantage of helping your team, like wanting them to hit their personal goals too, and really investing in them and their outcomes, not just at work, right? And so I think that was a big mind shift that I had to do myself. And I didn't start until you talked to me about it. So can you kind of dive in on how you motivate your team to be elite?
Number one, guys, your employees are never going to care about your business as much as you do. It doesn't matter who they are, how good they are. You care about it differently because it's yours, and they're not in that situation. They didn't invest the money. It's just different. But what you can do, is if Todd's working for me, when I talk to him during the interview, I want to know what his financial why is. I want to know, Todd, what's your financial why? What do you mean by that? What do you want to do with your money? Like specifically, what are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to get out of an apartment? Are you trying to pay off a car? You want to get rid of your credit cards? What is it you want to do with this money? And once I know that, then I can come up with a plan to help make that happen. And I want him to understand that it's important to me that happens, right? That I'm authentic about that. It's not just, some manipulation tactic to get what I want, but it's truly important to me that whatever he's trying to accomplish in his life, especially financially, that I'm there to help him do that. When people know that you care and you're asking those kind of questions and you come up with a plan and show them, hey, here's what you got to do. Because if he tells me I want to buy a house and I want to buy it in the next year, well, we can do the math. We can figure out how much he needs for the down payment, what's the difference in his rent and his mortgage going to be. And we can take our comp plan and our premium, and we can come up with a plan and say, okay, here's what you got to do. Here's the production, and here's the activity that's going to lead to that production. And then we can look at it every day, and we can tell. Just like if you had a personal trainer and you were trying to lose some weight, that's exactly what they're going to do. Yeah, how much weight you want to lose? All right, here's what you got to do every day. Let's hold you accountable to that, right? It's the same thing. So when they see that you're invested in them and you're trying to help them get what they want, that goes a long way. Another little thing that you guys can do is just find out what people like, right? So one thing that I'm going to do, I bring Todd in. One of the first things I'm going to ask him, what's your favorite candy bar? What's your favorite soft drink? What's your favorite restaurant in town? And when he does something that I feel is good, it doesn't always have to be this huge thing. He could just have a good conversation with a customer, handle a situation well, whatever. I'm going to go out of my way and I'm going to go make that stuff happen for him. If he likes little baby Ruths, I'm going to have a little baby Ruth with a Post-it note after he has that conversation. Hey, I heard that conversation, did a great job. Or maybe he likes Dr. Pepper Zero. It's my favorite drink. You can't hardly find them.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I provide that to him. If I see on Facebook, he's with his wife at a restaurant, I'm going to call that restaurant. Hey, there's a guy there. I want to take care of the bill. I want to pick it up for him. Let them know when they're done. Don't say anything up front. Let them know when they're done. Little things like that go a long way. It doesn't always have to be this giant bonus program or this trip. When your people genuinely feel like you care about them and you're paying attention to them and you're picking up on the little things that are important to their life, that's when you will get the full potential out of them to help you with your business. And it's funny how those two things kind of intersect. What's important to them, what's important to you, that's where all the magic happens. So I would really encourage you to think about that. If you haven't had that conversation with your team, take some time, spend some time and talk with them and find out, and not just do a vision board where everybody shows their little board. Oh, well, here's what kind of car. No, like have a serious conversation that says to them that you are concerned, that you want. And I think most of you care about your team, right? You definitely care about them as people, and it's important to you that they're successful. Hopefully it is. Show them that. Don't just tell them that by, having a meeting and talking about, like, sit down with them and find out what they're really all about. Now, it's got to be a two-way street, right? I can't be in here like constantly pushing things Todd's way to help him get that house and him not do what needs to be done. But my accountability conversations are always going to be about him getting that house or paying off that debt or whatever it is that he wants. I'm going to start there. And eventually, look, sometimes people, they're not going to be motivated for that. They're not going to stay disciplined. I shouldn't say motivated. Motivated is very temporary. Most people are not disciplined to get what they truly want. And you need to try to help them with that. But once you realize, you know what, they're just not going to do it, well, then that's when you got to make a decision. Do I keep them on as a contributor and just allow them to get by with the minimum, or do I find somebody else, right? But I think that's, for me, when we started doing it, I told you guys at the beginning of this call in 2008, with my youngest son, when he was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, which was a misdiagnosis, by the way. He actually was fine, but we went for like 8 months, didn't know. That changed everything for me, because I knew there was nothing I could do to help him outside of just getting him some, the best care. But I had a whole team of people that were working for me at the time that I was not doing a very good job for them. It was just very, it was all about just intimidation and fear, to be honest with you. And when I started really taking, note of what they wanted and trying to put them first, it was amazing. This was in 2008. This is in the middle of everything Todd first started talking about. Our results just went through the roof. We had record month after record month after record month, because people will do more when they know you care. When they know that you're genuinely interested, that's when you can get the most out of people. So if you've never done that with your team, I would highly recommend you start there and then start to build out your accountability from that point. And it'll be a whole lot easier for both of you.
Well, and you can make them a lot more, receptive to coaching, because I think if you really want to make someone elite and they know that you care about them, and you want to become a very successful agent and coach your team, you got to listen to their phone calls. You got to do those things that you're able to coach them properly on, not just preach them from the pulpit, right? Like listening to calls, and people they're going to feel like you actually care about them. So they're going to want to care about you. It's a two-way street, like you said. So I mean, good stuff. Sonia asked about what kind of different categories of systems that I've set up. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to go and dive into like specifics of what we're doing, and diving deep in how to really diagnose different types of problems within systems. So hopefully you guys, on the next couple of calls, when we get into specific topics, I want to hear your problem, because I want to dive down into, well, no, that's not really the problem. The problem is this. You didn't figure out this kind of solution to the system, or efficiencies and things like that. So John asked if there was any restrictions on using a dialer. So John, when I was talking about using a predictive dialer, or not a predictive dialer, those you don't want to use, a multi-line dialer, it was in reference to internet leads where I've already gotten approved consent because I purchased the lead. So yes, you do have to be very cautious of what kind of leads you're throwing into a multi-line dialer because of TCPA laws, and make sure you have all those updated. Any other questions about, this was all about, you guys got to stay positive. Like there's so much, this is such a good cyclical business to be in, that it can really feel detrimental with what's going around you and all the negativity and the market crashing. But I mean, I feel sorry for that restaurant guy that you were talking about during COVID.
There's a bunch of them like that. I mean, I have a lot of personal friends that own businesses all over the South, frankly, that they're bankrupt now. I mean, they were shut down to the point where there was no other option, and I have some that were very resilient. One of our coaches at CWC used to be an agency owner. He started a gym in March of 2020.
Oh, shoot.
Now, he's just a mentally tough guy and was able to work through it, and they have a thriving business today. But there's a lot of people that they weren't able to do that. They weren't able to pull through. So, we should have a lot of perspective for where we are with what we do for a living. And kind of getting back to what we were talking about in the beginning, guys, when these rate increases are going on with all these other companies, all it does is stir the market. When you think about the last couple of years, if you started in maybe 2019, you've only been here for a few years, like, wow, what's going on? Well, we didn't have any rate increases for the past couple of years. The companies were actually like giving money back, right? There's like no activity. At the same time, it may have been a little bit harder to get customers or prospects to talk to you because they were like, everything's fine. Well, now they're getting rate increases. Now that market's being all stirred up. And are you going to lose some people? Yes, you're going to lose some people. But can you get more than what you lose because of what's going on with all the other companies? If you're smart about it, you absolutely can. And that's where the opportunity is to grow. And that's what we talked about at kind of the beginning of the call is like the reason why things are happening today across the country. That's your benefit. That's the thing to leverage because inflation is affecting every single company. It's not just isolated, to one carrier, one region. It's everybody. So everybody's dealing with this. So what you should be doing is spending time with your team to try to save as many as you can. We love to use tenure. We love to be able to play that game about, and I hate to say game, but it kind of is. And where you put it in their mind that, look, you've been here for 9 years. If you leave, they're not going to be able to do anything for you over there. If something happens, maybe you can, maybe you can't, but you can at least put that maybe a little doubt in their mind about, should I leave, right? Like they just added a young driver on and you really want to leave. You want to leave and go to Progressive or go to Geico and risk that young driver going out there and getting an accident. Now you got a non-renewal on your record and you're shopping around for insurance with a non-renewal on your record. And we always say that. Does it really mean anything? Maybe not, but sometimes it'll give them stay. Sometimes I can get them to stay because they feel like, hey, there is a benefit and they can't get that if they go someplace else. So train your team to save business and then make sure that you are active in your marketing. And frankly, I would double down on that side of your business to get more than what you end up losing. And at the end of the day, chances are, if you do this right, your premium is going to go up anyways. I mentioned earlier in the call about the 42% rate increase we took in Georgia. Did we lose some customers? Yes. But what did premium do? It went up. It went up. The companies, they know what they can do. They know what they can take. And sometimes it doesn't work out that way for everybody. But I think those are just like the little things to kind of keep in mind as you move forward with all this so that you come out on the other side and you're winning.
Yeah, I would say the last thing that I would have to add on how do you stay motivated and focused is what I like to do at the beginning of the day, like my actual work day. This isn't when I wake up. I like to have my to-do list, like things that I really want to do. And then I have a little section that I put, no matter what happens, this has to get done today. Mm-hmm. Right. And being able to write that down and hold accountability and writing it into my journal, my daily, it makes me feel like when I get those 1, 2, 3 things done, usually it's 1 or 2. I try not to do more than that. When I get those 1 or 2 things done, I feel more successful, right? Even if I didn't get the laundry list done, I knew that as an entrepreneur, and this is, I have to do these things. If I achieve those 2 things, check them off, cross them off, whatever I do that day, it makes me feel a lot better. And then staying around positive people and understanding that this is a very opportune time And even if you guys don't have systems and processes set up and you're the ones freaking out right now, you got time. This market cycle just started, right? Now it's just about digging your heels in and doing things the right way.
100%. There's a lot of opportunity out there over the next, probably the next 24 months, 18 to 24 months, with a lot of different things that are going to be available for people, whether it's new business or, maybe acquire another agency. There's just gonna be a lot of disruption. We kind of went through a lot of this in 2000 with our carrier, and some people came out on the other side and made a lot of money and grew dramatically. So I would just kind of maybe to kind of close out, and I'll let you close it out completely, Todd. But I would just tell you guys, focus on what you can control. And I know that's like I say that all the time, but I just try to live my life that way. I mean, why would I worry and waste time and energy on something that I can't do anything about? And most of the things that we worry about, they never happen anyways. So take your energy, your mental energy, your physical energy, your emotions, and place them in places where you can actually make progress. And what Todd just said, find like one or two things for the day. I'm exactly the same way. If I feel like I just made progress with something, those little wins, that can make the difference in the day, right? So don't put it like a laundry list of 30 things to get done that day, because that's probably not going to happen. Just prioritize it. Find a couple, 2-3 things that you could focus on that day and make sure they get done. And just try to remember that this business is just, it's an amazing business for so many different reasons if you just look at it the right way. And those that do, they end up being super, super successful. And those that don't are constantly worried about, every little thing and getting down and negative. Those are the ones we see that at some point they end up selling or going and doing something else. And, you got to choose your hard. Everything's hard. Whether you do this or you go work at some car lot, or everything's hard. It's just, you get to choose it, So I love this business. I think it's a great place to be, especially right now.
Well, hey, I appreciate you, Craig, and your time.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody who joined on. Stay tuned, because we're going to start posting topics and really start diving into specific topics and how we can help you run each system and each different type of segment of your agency. So everyone stay positive. Don't lose your shit, right? Again, coffee with closers. We don't care about customers. So everybody have a good day and take it easy.
All right, guys. You guys take care. See you soon.